I'm joined today by Tyson Slocum, who's Director of Public Citizens Energy Program. Tyson, when we hear about fracking, we often hear about, and correctly so, effect on the environment, the impact on groundwater, earthquakes, etc. But we don't hear nearly as much about the risks facing fracking workers, which are quite significant, aren't they?
They are, and in fact, there's just been some research published that documents a number of health problems and safety issues associated with oil and gas workers, but with workers involved in fracking specifically. That's where most of the growth in oil and gas employment has been because of the explosive growth of fracking for natural gas and oil in the United States. And so, in addition to injuries that occur from any sort of heavy industrial work like oil and gas work, the thing that's unique about fracking is central to the process of fracturing up these hard rock formations to get at the oil and natural gas that's trapped below is injecting at very high pressure chemically laced compounds that include a number of serious health risk and cancer causing agents. And it's worker exposure to the fracking fluids, both when the fracking fluid is being injected deep down into the well, but then very importantly, you've got flowback, where about 20 to 15% of the volume of water that's injected into these fracking formations flows back up to the surface, often in very unexpected ways and sometimes with an enormous amount of force that can expose workers to the harmful chemicals. And so the oil and gas sector is one of the most hazardous in terms of exposing workers to safety and health risks.
And the flowbacks, as an example, we often hear when there's an individual instance of something going wrong at a fracking site that, oh, that's not sort of the status quo of how this is done. That's an outlier because A, B, or C specifically was done incorrectly there. Is the flowback something that's a matter of course for fracking, or are those errors that are made?
No, the flowback is is supposed to exit the well. What what is important is how that flowback is contained and managed. And that depends upon the training of the workers involved. It depends upon the equipment. It depends upon whether or not the well has been properly done. So you want to be able to have a very containable flowback. But of course, we've seen a number of instances where that flowback water has been uncontrolled, and that's where exposure to very harmful chemicals occurs.
Who is in charge of policing fracking work sites?
Well, the Occupational and Safety Health Administration is the lead for onshore uh, worker safety, but OSHA, as it's known, has a very spotty record of doing. And the oil and you see lorrying sector, the downstream, but in upstream, it is largely not union. And as a result, you don't have a number of health and safety emphasis in a non-union operation that you would in a union shop. And so as a result, it's really up to the industry. The thing that is very important to note is that oil prices have dropped significantly. So when oil prices are high, everybody's making a huge profit. When prices go down, the profit margins become much tighter, and the likelihood that companies will try to cut costs is going to increase. And when you cut costs, some companies will cut corners. And one of the first things to cut is worker safety initiatives. And so what we're seeing right now in a lot of these oil fields is companies pushing equipment workers to the limit to try and maximize production levels because of the low prices, or you're seeing them sacrifice alarming statistics on to cut corners.
The saddest part about all of this is that we're at a place right now where if societally we decided, hey, you know what, we actually have the technology to not even need fracking and we can subsidize energy in a different way than that which we're doing now and subsidize alternative renewable energy, we wouldn't even really need this. In other words, this is not, according to the economists I've spoken to, a necessary energy source if we start planning properly now for the next 20 years. But sadly, that seems to not even be a factor.
Yeah, and in fact, fracking of natural gas has pushed the market price of natural gas to the point where it is competing with renewables. Renewables are coming in at very low price points, but when you've got natural gas, it's actually pushing renewables out, and that's a big problem.
As you can probably tell, our connection to Tyson is not good and it's only getting worse. So we will leave it there. A very important topic, the hazardous working conditions for fracking workers. Tyson Slocum, thanks so much for being with us.